Okay, and if I can remind members to have their cameras on, thank you. Okay. All right, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special digital meeting of Cabinet held Wednesday, 19th of January. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And as you will be aware, this meeting will be recorded and made available to view on the Council's website. Okay, so do we have any apologies that we're aware of?
Yes, we've received one from Councillor Andrew Whitcomb.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Thank you. Okay, on to declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and/or prejudicial interest in respect of any items of business on the agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Does anyone have anything to declare? Okay, no indications there, so thank you, everyone. Moving on then to receive and consider the following reports on which an executive decisions are required. So we're on to item number 3, which is the draft budget proposals for 2022-23. And if I can hand over to Councillor Stenner, please.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of the report is to present Cabinet with details of the draft budget proposals for 2022 to 23 financial year, to allow for a period of consultation prior to a final decision by Cabinet on the 24th of February 2022. Details of the 2022-23 provisional financial settlement were released on the 21st of December 2021 and showed an overall increase of 9.4% in core funding for local government on an all-Wales basis. The level of increase for individual local authorities is determined by changes in data sets that drive the funding formula. And for Caerphilly County Borough Council, there is a cash uplift of 8.5% for 2022-23, which equates to £25.1 million. The provisional financial settlement includes funding to enable local authorities to meet the additional costs of introducing the real living wage for care workers. This is intended to apply to staff employed directly by local authorities for the services commissioned from the independent sector. The provisional financial settlement also includes indicative uplifts in core funding for 2023-24 and 2024-25 on an all-Wales basis. These are 3.5% and 2.4% respectively. The significant increase in the provisional financial settlement for 2022-23 is very welcome during these challenging times, but circa £17.3 million of the increase will be needed to fund inescapable inflationary pressures. However, based on a council tax being increased by 2.5%, there will be a circa £10 million available for investment in key services areas as the authority recovers from the ongoing pandemic. Some of the key features of this investment include £6.2 million for social services to meet the commitment to pay the real living wage for care workers, address increases in demand in both adult and children's services, and to provide funding to assist with additional costs that may continue to arise as a consequence of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The draft budget proposals will also ensure that budgets are protected for our schools. £250,000 has been identified to support a new apprenticeship scheme across the council. Significant investment is also proposed in public protection services to increase capacity in key teams such as trading standards, enforcement and environmental health. There will also be additional investment in the Community Safety Warden Service, the Flood Prevention Team and in the Business Enterprise and Renewal Team to lever in external funding to promote the development of our town centres. The draft budget proposals include a proposed increase of 2.5% in council tax for the 2022-23 financial year. This is well below inflation and is the lowest increase for a number of years. This will increase the Caerphilly County Borough Council's Band D precept from £1,230.57 to £1,261.33. That is an annual increase of £30.76 or weekly increase of 59p for a Band D property. In terms of the wider financial implications of COVID-19, Cabinet will be aware that Welsh Government has provided substantial grant funding to local authorities in both the 2021 and 2021-22 financial years through the COVID-19 Hardship Fund to meet additional costs and income losses. The Hardship Fund will cease on the 31st of March 2022, and local authorities will be required to meet ongoing financial pressures linked to the pandemic from the funding provided in the provisional financial statement. Due to the ongoing financial uncertainty linked to the pandemic, it is proposed to top up the Council's COVID-19 earmarked reserve to £5 million by transferring uncommitted balances on other previously approved reserves. The Cabinet report includes details of an updated mid-term financial plan that shows a potential savings requirement of £9.753 million for the 2-year period 2023-24 to 2024-25. Detailed work will be undertaken in the coming months to further refine the mid-term financial plan and the Council's transformation programme, and associated corporate reviews will be key components in addressing the projected financial gap. A report will be presented to Cabinet in early autumn, providing a further updated mid-term financial plan, alongside detailed proposals in terms of addressing the savings requirements moving forward. It is important that local people have their say on our budget proposals, so a public consultation was launched on Thursday the 13th of January, and I would encourage as many people as possible to have their say. Residents will be able to take part and submit feedback in a number of ways. A leaflet is being distributed to every home in the county borough, with details of the consultation and how to get involved, and information and online surveys can also be found on the Council's website. In terms of the recommendations, Cabinet is asked to endorse the 2022-23 draft budget proposals, support the proposed increased council tax by 2.5% for the 2022-23 financial year to ensure that a balanced budget is achieved, support the proposal to top up the COVID-19 earmarked reserve to £5 million as detailed in paragraph 5.5.3 of the report, agree that the draft budget proposal should now be subject to consultation prior to the final 2022-23 budget proposals being presented to Cabinet and Council in February 2022. And to note the indicative potential saving requirement of £9.753 million for the 2-year period 2023-24 to 2024-25. I move.
Thanks ever so much, Councillor Stella. Can I call in Councillor Pritchard to second, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yes, and can I formally second Councillor Stenner's recommendation? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Thank you ever so much for that. Okay, Steve Harris, I wondered if there's anything further you wanted to add to the introduction by Councillor Stenner before we go to any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'd just like to reiterate that the 8.5% increase is, of course, very welcome. And although a large proportion of this is required to meet inescapable inflationary pressures, there is still an opportunity to invest around £10 million in key services. However, the pandemic means that there is still a considerable amount of uncertainty moving forward, and hence the proposal in the report to increase the COVID earmark reserve to £5 million. It's important, of course, that we don't take our eye off the medium to longer term position and we maintain our financial sustainability moving forward, as the updated MTFP is showing a potential savings requirement of around £9.7 million for the 2-year period 23-24 to 24-25. As outlined in the report, the transformation programme will be one of the key elements in helping us to address this financial gap, and we will bring a further report to Cabinet in the autumn, setting out detailed proposals in relation to an updated MTFP and how we will close that gap moving forward. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, thank you ever so much, Steve, and thank you for pointing out those two important recommendations there around the COVID reserve and giving that some more money, as you say, uncertain times that lie ahead. So thank you for that. Okay, I've got a number of hands up. So if I go to Councillor Gordon first, please.
Thank you, Leader. How many properties benefit from our council tax reduction scheme, and how many get a 100% reduction?
I can come in for there, Lisa.
Yeah, if you could, Councillor Stenner. Yes, thank you.
Okay. We've got a total of 16,300 properties that benefit from the council tax reduction scheme. And just over 20% of these properties receive 100% reduction in their council tax. So that is the 100% reduction equates to 9,034 properties.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Stenner.
Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gordon. And Councillor Cook.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I don't have a question. I just want to note that this Labour administration has always looked to protect social services, and this draft budget highlights our commitment to support the most vulnerable in Caerphilly. The continuing impact and waves of COVID now means we are holding a large waiting list for some of our services within social services, and we currently have a backlog of more than 600 hours per week for domiciliary care and pressures in other areas. Dealing with this unmet demand will take time and also be very costly. As members will be aware, social services have been hugely reliant on grants from Welsh Government to meet COVID-related costs, particularly the Hardship Fund. This has helped us meet additional costs by paying our independent sector partners an enhancement related to meet the cost of items such as PPE. As far as understood, at the moment, this grant will cease on the 31st of March 2022, and the funding obligation will fall to local authorities. Whilst I've already referenced COVID-related pressures, it should also be noted the Directorate was dealing with the cost of demographic pressures before the pandemic began, and these pressures haven't gone away and will add to the burden of the post-pandemic costs. And in addition, the recent announcement by Welsh Government of the payment of the real living wage to all care staff, which we all welcome and support, but the details on this are still awaited. However, the work to determine the exact cost of Caerphilly is going to be extremely complex and time-consuming. I just want to again highlight this Labour's administration support for social services, especially at these challenging and unprecedented times. Thank you, Leader.
No, thank you, Councillor Cook, for raising such an important point there. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Pritchard.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Firstly, can I welcome again the fact that this is a proposed no cuts budget. I think that's not to be underestimated. We've known for many years it was been difficult, to propose reductions or cuts over the years. For the second year running, we haven't got any cuts proposed, and indeed this is a growth budget that has got some very important things going forward. The Cabinet member, Councillor Leonard Stenner, did refer to the massive cost pressures that we're facing as an authority. I think £17 million in total, a huge amount. Inflation running at 5.4% now, and the UK Conservative government's proposed national insurance increase. That's going to have a big impact on residents. I think a question for Steve Harris is if he's able to answer this question. For every 1%, Steve, on inflation, clearly we're about 3.4% over the Bank of England's 2% target now. What does that mean in real terms for this authority in terms of cost pressures?
Yeah, happy to deal with that question. Just to reiterate, within the budget proposals at the moment, we've set aside funding for a 4% increase in inflation. Now, the reasoning behind that is that we are experiencing an upward trend, and you're right, the announcement yesterday on the figures for December were 5.4%. But it is anticipated that in time we will start to see that come back down. So there's 4% in the budget, but for every 1% change in the inflation rate, it does have an impact of around £1.7 million on our budget. So again, it just demonstrates there are risks that we need to manage moving forward, and inflation obviously and the volatility in that area is one of the things we'll need to keep a close eye on.
Well, thank you, Steve, for that. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. If I could go to Councillor Cook again, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I do have a question. How many Band A to C properties do we have in the borough?
I can take that, Leader. Band A to C properties in Caerphilly. Just over 75% of our properties are Band A to C. The actual figure, I believe, and I'm sure Steve Harris will correct me if I'm wrong, is 60,851.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cook. If I can go to Councillor...
Sorry, Leader, could I just come in on that? That figure is correct, but I think it's important to stress that that is 75% of the households as well. I'd just like to make that point.
Thank you, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for reiterating that point, Steve. Okay, if I can go to Councillor Whiting now, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I was just going to say, I endorse very much the proposals contained in the draft budget, but also I wanted to draw that extra attention to the consultation aspect of this. And obviously, this is a budget that's going to affect all of our residents. I think it's a good budget, but of course, it's their views that we need to listen to now and take on board during the consultation. So I would really encourage all residents to take a look at these proposals and to put in their views, because really that's what we need to happen. It's useful for us, it's useful for them. It's all part of the democratic process, and I look forward to seeing the consultation play out.
Thanks ever so much, Councillor Whiting. Okay, if I can go to Councillor George, please.
Thank you, Leader. One for Lynn or Steve. Can you tell the meeting the actual amount a Band D property will pay in comparison with other authorities, our neighbouring authorities?
I can come in there again, Philippa, and I'm sure once again Steve Harris will correct me if my figures are going to be wrong. But if the council tax is increased by 2.5%, then a Band D in Caerphilly would be £1,261 per annum. Our neighbouring authority, Blaen y Gwent, would be £1,812. And Merthyr would be £1,772. Therefore, Caerphilly would be £551 lower than Blaen y Gwent and £511 lower than Merthyr. So that's quite a substantial amount difference between Caerphilly and the neighbouring authorities.
Right, thank you. Yeah, surprising. Can I just say, it's really good to see in the draft proposals that we are looking at increasing the number of safety wardens and enforcement officers, because I think they're sorely needed at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Councillor George. Thank you for that, those comments. Okay, are there any further? Oh, okay, Councillor Stenner, if you'd like to come back in.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Whilst the settlement is very welcomed, and for the second year running, we find ourselves out to public consultation with a no cuts budget. You know, that is pleasing news to the authority. I would urge people to respond to the consultation, but it would be remiss of me not to point out what any reduction in the percentage of council tax increase would mean for us to balance the budget, which is a legal requirement. The money would have to be taken from other areas for us to find a reduction in the council tax increase. As a Cabinet, we have spoken at length about the shocking increase of in-work poverty, where we know residents of this borough are relying on food banks whilst they wait for their next paycheck to come in. This, coupled with increased national insurance contributions, soaring inflation rates, rising energy costs, and not forgetting a global pandemic, is at the forefront of all our minds. I look forward to seeing the results of the consultation so that we can analyse residents' thoughts on this budget. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much, Councillor Stenner. And as already that has been mentioned by my colleagues on the meeting today, we absolutely recognise that the past couple of years have been difficult for everyone. And to me, this has been in the forefront of all our minds in terms of proposing the draft budget. And I think, the main aims, again, are to protect services, frontline services, and to plug the gaps where we absolutely need to. And for me, this will be an enabler for us to support our communities. And I think, what is driving all the way through this budget is that element that we want to continue to support our communities. And again, through unprecedented times. I don't like to keep using our expression because we've used it so much in the last 2 years, but it clearly is unprecedented times. As it just has been alluded to there, Councillor Stenner pointed that this is again a no-cuts budget, and I'm absolutely proud to be able to deliver a draft proposal that sets out no cuts and in fact a 10 million investment in our frontline services. So this is, but what's already been, pointed out today, as Steve Harris has already said, further down the line, we know there are going to be issues. We absolutely know through the medium-term financial plan, it's going to be tough going forward. And whilst we absolutely recognise that Welsh government are giving us a settlement this year, we are under no illusions that it's not going to be difficult in years 2 and 3. So with that in mind, I think it's really important that that residents have this say on this proposal. Again, it is a draft budget, it is a proposed budget, and it is for our residents to absolutely have their say on this, and how they feel about those. So as my colleagues have already said on this call, it's important that actually we urge everyone in our communities to take part, and in that, as we say, it's going out in paper form, it can be done online as well. And I think we should all, take that message away to our communities that actually that's what we need to be doing. So without further ado, I think we're ready to go to the vote. Are there no other indications to come in and speak? I'll just wait for that to come through. Has everyone been able to vote?
Leader, it's not coming up for me. It says submission failed. I'm voting for.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll have that recorded then verbally, and we'll take that as a unanimous support for going forward with these all important recommendations as laid out in the report. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Steve Harris, as well for your input today. Thank you very much, everyone. And if we can end the meeting there, thank you for everyone for attending.